Does money buy happiness?
It can only be good because money is the most competitive product in the world because it buys you choice and options. As long as you find joy in those things, it will buy you happiness.
How much cash flow can you expect passively from a seven-figure portfolio?
You can earn between the thing you're afraid of doing, you're already doing. People say, I don't know about investing. I'm like, do you have a superannuation fund? They go, yes. You already invest.
Is crypto an asset?
Bitcoin's a flipping piece of shit, basically, is because
You recently hang out with Ty Lopez. What's your biggest takeaway from him?
I said to him, when is the time to buy the Lambo and the Ferrari? It's an interesting answer that he had. Tune into the next episode to find the answer.
Welcome to the Creative Grit, the podcast for creative entrepreneurs who are hungry to have more impact, make more money, and become successful in every area of life. I'm your host, Nelson, and your journey to mastering life and business begins in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to another episode of the Creative Grit podcast. Today, we have another legend at Vibes HQ. As usual, this person is a podcaster, he's an author, he's been an entrepreneur for many years, built a seven-figure portfolio. We have so much to talk about business, entrepreneurship, and money. He is a money expert. So please welcome to the show, the legend, the one and only, Lloyd James
What's up,
Ross.
Nelson? Hey, thanks for having me on, man. I'm thrilled to be on here. I love what you guys do, and it was great catching up the other day, and thanks for having me on the show. I'm pumped.
Dude, I've been looking forward to this conversation since the day we met. We met through one of our clients you came as a guest on the podcast, and I was there producing that one. And I'm like, damn, this guy is a legend, huh? He knows a thing or two. And you recognize savages, like savages recognize each other. So I was like, this guy gets it, I want
feel
to have
the same
a
way about
conversation.
you. Like it's very rare to come into a production studio like that and meet someone who gets business and who's also got humility. So I found that, it's really good. Great connection. But it was good to catch up the other night at dinner. We had a long conversation, and I'm still not doing video podcasting yet, but this is on my agenda to do.
Yeah, and this is why I connected so much with you, because same as me, you live and breathe this shit. You live for business, making money, having impact, helping people, and you're savage, right? You go hard. We were even talking at the beginning of the conversation of why the chessboard, as a prop within the set. And I was just telling you, like, man, chess to me really is life. When you lose, it's because you made a mistake.
Yeah, we're talking about like with chess. It's so cool you got this board here. As soon as I walked in the studio, I'm like, oh, you play chess? Like, it's a fun hobby. It keeps your mind active. I'm just addicted to it at the moment. I'm on chess.com, right? And so we were just talking before about the fact that it's like you said, it's a war. But what's interesting is like it brings out your personality traits. It's like I'm very aggressive on the chessboard. And that can get you into trouble as well. Mm-hmm. But I find the offense is the best defense on the chessboard. But also it keeps your mind active and sharp. And I play as soon as I get up, I have a game. I play a lot. I play probably too much. But it's a fun thing to keep you sharp because it's strategy based, makes you think. And business is the same. And money is the same. It is a fun game. Like money is a game. Completely and utterly. Business is a game. Money's a game. And often when I grew up, I was like, why do these multi-millionaires and some billionaires, why is it they just keep working? I'm like, why don't they like retire and sit on the beach? And what you realize as you grow up and evolve and master some areas of business is it's an addiction to the game. It's a game you can play for life. Like Warren Buffett's playing this game now and he's 93. His business partner, Charlie Munger, 99.9. He played until he died. It's just a fun game. And I think that's what I love about money in business or investing in business. It keeps me engaged, entertained, enthralled. It keeps me learning. It forces me to level up. It's very emotionally challenging. It's like chess, I love it. So I play forever.
And it's an infinite game. That
it's
once you get it in that sense, is like the game is not to win. Is not to get a specific outcome. Is the longer you stay in it, you're winning. The longer you stay in business, you're winning. The longer you stay with your partner, you're winning, right? If you can stay playing the game, that means you are winning.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think it's addiction to the game. So it's marry the process and divorce the outcome. along the journey, you get wins, hopefully, lots of them. And you get some setbacks and some losses, but it's what makes the game fun and exciting. And it sucks when you lose. Same as chess. I'm like, I lost. I'm like, what? And I just want to get the thing and play again and play again. And I think that's a good trait to have in business because you're going to get kicked. You're going to lose. You're going to lose money. You're going to lose deals. You're going to lose friendship. You know, it's a gnarly game. But, you know, you're going to get injured. You can play forever.
And that's one thing that you said there that really resonates with me, the offense, being in offense. That's how I think when I do business as well. It's always that we do not play on defense. I feel like when people rely on defense, that's when they get eaten by the savages. You know,
that's true.
But the top players, like the best move, I always think of this. What's my best move? Whatever I'm looking at, if it's business, relationships, or it's always like being on the offense.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, because you're always evolving and learning then too, I think. And you have to in business, you have to be, it seems to go faster all the time, but Moore's law basically dictates the speed of business because it dictates the speed of innovation. So Moore's law is computer speed doubles every 18 months. And so you think about the technology and advancement in AI and things like that at the moment, business will just keep picking up steam. It will just keep moving forward. And if you sit on your laurels and don't aggressively attack, you know, within reason, you'll be out evolved. And I mean, I've seen that as part of my business journey. I saw that initially with my dad, getting into business with my dad. He's had a 35-year property business. And when I left the Middle East to come back and get into business with him when I was about 28, I had realized the business had been, unbeknownst to itself, been not evolved. It wasn't playing enough aggressive offense in technology. So the whole business was just in tatters just about. And it was like, well, how do we evolve this and rescue it? And we did that for 7 years and we rescued the business. And we put it, you know, if you don't evolve and grow continuously, consistently, like the world has it will catch up and it'll pass you. And then when you're in business and it's past you, and it's like hectic to catch up. And you can, but it's harder. You don't want to come from behind. You want to always stay in some sort of offensive role. You know, I think.
And 3 moves ahead. Always think
if you can, I mean, if you can, like chess is multiple moves ahead. You have to think about what the other person is going to do, but you have to have a strategy and then pivot when things change. And if you can be a couple moves ahead, that's how it works in business. In money, it works. In investing and in business, and that's how you got to play the game.
Yeah, and another important thing that I've learned along the journey with that is that in order for you to be moves ahead, you first need the reps. You first need to go into the battlefield many times and get all those losses racked up. So the next time, it's easier for you to spot, you know, the obstacle miles ahead.
Totally.
Yeah.
And you learn from your competitors who beat you up.
Yeah.
So you like, if on the chessboard, if someone does a move and I'm like, I'm flipping out, he just got me there and there. Like, holy shit. Like, and I can replicate that next time. You know, so like you do always learn even when you lose. So when I started playing chess again, I started playing what I've known to be Blitz chess, which is where you play 3-minute games. So of course in chess, when you hit the button, it's timed and it puts the pressure on. So I'm like, I like to win a lot and quickly. So I'm like, well, I'll play 3-minute chess. So I'm like, it's fast game. And so what I learned was my rating started as 100 in 3-minute chess. And then I started playing. So to your point, I was playing a lot. And so what it did was it shortened the feedback loop to my lesson learning. So I'm like, if I can make more mistakes faster by playing 3-minute chess, I will reduce the learning curve. I'll bring it closer. So I can learn my mistakes now and I can apply them for the next 20 years. But if I wait 20 years to make my mistakes, I don't get to apply them. So I'm like, how can I actually make the most mistakes the fastest here in this game? Hit the 3-minute button, bang, 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 bang. So I've learned what they do. I've learned what I do wrong. And my rating has gone up to, I hit to about 500 rating recently, which is not bad. And then what I did was, because I was like talking about your like defense, I'm like, oh, now I'm at a 500 rating. I'm like, I don't know if I want to play. Because when you play, you can lose the rating. You're like, it falls. You're like,
now you have something to lose.
Now you have something to lose. So I'm like, oh, I'll play defensively. And my whole rating went fucking back to
plummeted.
I was like, oh. And then I kept playing. And what I noticed was I was like, I want to play because I enjoy the game. So I'm like, yes, I had this rating. Yes, I could lose it. but what else am I going to flip and do with my spare time?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I love to play the game. So I played again and I got back up to 570. So, and I'm learning more lessons as I go.
Yeah.
So that's such a great metaphor for business.
Dude, and the faster you can get comfortable with making mistakes and understanding like, wow, this is flipping the mindset to this is such an incredible opportunity to fix our systems, our processes, make a better delivery of our service, you know, just get better.
Well, you do it really optimistically. Like you sounds like you. I do it not like that. I'm like, damn it. That's why.
Mind you, like I'm all over it. And especially when it's mistakes, because once you start outgrowing the thing and you have now people involved, now the mistakes are not just your mistakes, it's the mistakes on the team, but everything comes back to me, right?
Sure.
So that's a harder one. And I get annoyed, man. I'm the kind of person that I'm like, fuck that thing. Where's the battery? You know, where's the camera battery? And I can't stop until we find it. Like little things like that. Yeah. I need to make sure that we're sharp across everything, right? And when I do make a mistake, I'm like, fuck, man, that wasn't good. Like, why did we do that? Why did I make that? But then I flip it. I've been able to get better at just flipping the energy and the mindset of the approach and the perspective way sooner than what it used to be many years ago. Now it's like, no, this is great. You know, let's fucking optimize.
Yeah. Well, you learn. That's how you learn. That's how you become 10 minutes ahead of the next person. You know, it reminds me of the two men being chased by the lion. You probably heard the story. Two men are being chased by a lion and they start running. And then one guy pulls up, bends down and opens a box. And the guy, he was like, what the heck's this guy doing? And he puts on a brand new pair of running shoes. And guy says to him, man, why are you putting the shoes on? You're not going to outrun a lion. He's like, I don't have to outrun the lion. It's got to outrun you. Exactly. And so if you don't get in front of this and make mistakes the fastest, you can't learn the fastest, which means then you're not going to outrun the next person. So it's all part of the journey, making errors, you know.
Does money buy happiness?
Yeah, look, the alternative to that is that it doesn't. Now, if you believe that it doesn't, then it's going to get in the way of you getting it. So I think if you have a belief, black or white, if it doesn't buy happiness, that's going to get in the way. But if you believe it does, then what a fun and enjoyable belief, so long as you understand that the way you earn it will bring you happiness and the way you spend it will bring you happiness or sadness. So it can be either or, but why not have an optimistic approach about the topic? It can only be good because money is the most competitive product in the world. Everyone wants a piece of it. It's the most competitive product because it buys you choice and options and power and influence and, you know, freedom, all these wonderful things that innately in us, in our values system, most of us desire. You know, women cry for it, men die for it, which is freedom. So it's like, if money can do those things, that's what makes it powerful. And if you attach those values to your money, then of course you're going to find joy in making it and joy in spending it. But as long as you find joy in those things, it will buy you happiness.
I 100% agree with everything you said. And I find it that it's very difficult to get to that conclusion for most people, depending on the environment that they grew up, depending on the beliefs that the parents install in them. Because to give you an example, I grew up in a household where there was always the lack of money. And anytime that, you know, as a kid, I was like, oh, my millionaire friends are getting XYZ, they're traveling and stuff. Dad, can we do that? And he will always say, no, we don't have money. There's no money. So there was always this like lack of money. We don't have it. We can't get it. There's a limit to what we can do. And like you said a word in there that is my reason to why I'm going to make 8 figures plus for myself. It's choice. It really is like getting that freedom and that power to make any decision you want.
Yeah, and paradoxically, your dad did you a favor.
Absolutely.
So it's like people go, oh, I didn't grow up with money. I'm like, yeah, but it kind of reminds me of the story with the two twins that they interviewed. The press interviewed these two twins. They had an alcoholic father, twin boys, and they grew up with an alcoholic father. And then many years later, so they interviewed him when they were young. They interviewed him when they were older, and one had developed this tremendous success, and the other one had actually become an alcoholic and like pretty well on the streets, just tapped out. And they interviewed both of them, and they said, "What is it? How do you explain your situation? How did you end up here?" Same question, and they both had the same answer. And the answer was, well, with a father like mine, how could I not? Same, like, so it's the attitude. So like, yes, if you grew up like that, your attitude is, well, flipping heck, I want to go and explore this and actually figure out if that's true or not. And I'm going to go on my own path. And so that lack of choice created the fire inside of you to go and change. Discontentment. So that created discontentment. That's a powerful motivator. Whereas some people go, well, I didn't learn about it and this and that, and they just kind of go into victimhood. And that's where the problem arises from. So it's not your background that will dictate your future. It's just your response to it. And money's the same thing. I mean, variety of different. I grew up in a household where my dad said, son, money's, what do you say? It's not, money's not everything, but it's right up there with oxygen. So it's like really important. And, and money makes you handsome. Funny jokes he'd have. But it was a different approach because I saw him make tons of money and work hard to get it. He flipping hustled, man. Like, some of the stories are incredible. He'd be fun to have on the show. Yeah. But I've seen him, I saw my folks have money, not have money, have money. But it never brought unhappiness. Yep. It only ever brought fun and joy. And it made sense to have it. Doesn't mean we weren't happy when we didn't. I remember happy times, when it was a little bit harder for my parents. It was not harder for me. Right? I was well looked up. Like, my parents always looked after me well, but I could see it would have been very hard for them. But I never really saw them unhappy because of money. It was other things. So I didn't think money ever got in the way of their happiness. It really didn't. It's always other things, relationships can be conflicting and hurtful and other stuff. But I never saw money do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Does money grows on trees?
So that's the name of my actual podcast and my first book, incidentally, Money Grows on Trees. Because, you hear like money doesn't grow on trees, money doesn't buy happiness, money's the root of all evil. These are all the cliche sayings from when you grow up. And what that means is when a parent typically or someone says that, what they mean is, look, I just can't go out the back and pick some money off the tree. What do you think I am, made of money? These types of things. So that's true in the literal sense that it doesn't grow on an actual tree. Like, there's a tree there, I see it's.
Really? Because one of mine is called cash.
This is called cash?
It's called cash,
That's cool.
man.
I mean, you can buy trees called money trees. We actually, a friend of mine, a mentor and a business partner bought me a money tree recently. So it's at home. Yeah. It's really interesting. But so I wrote that because it's a flip on the paradigm, and money does grow on trees metaphorically if you know what seeds to plant and if you look after it. Plants need sunlight, water, good soil, and time to grow. They need those things. And investments are the same. Businesses are the same. They need you to water them, nurture them, give them sunlight and, patience. Yeah. So it does grow on trees. Like, if you take X amount of dollars and invest it, right? Like, I wasn't even in the bank yesterday. I'm doing this business deal at the moment. I was in the bank and we have to put a certain pound into a term deposit as collateral to do this business acquisition. Anyway, they'll pay me a 5% deposit paid monthly, right? So that's a very basic money tree where you put your money in the bank in a term deposit and they pay you interest. That's a money tree. It pays interest, okay? Not the best money tree, but it's one. And then if you put your money in shares, they pay dividends. If you put your money in real estate, then the real estate grows in value and you get paid rent. So in a sense, that is how you plant a money tree and get paid, so that money continues. It's almost like metaphorically going out and taking the $100 bill off the tree is how you do it from assets. And so it does grow on trees. You just have to know which seed to plant and how to look after it. That's it.
And by the way, I love that you took those very popular sayings and turned them into completely the opposite and offering the education for it and actually standing for something that 99% of people will be like on the boat of, oh, money doesn't grow on trees, money doesn't buy happiness, all this stuff. And you come in with the opposite side to it.
Yeah.
Extremely smart.
Well, I think it's like you would know this as a marketing expert, that we live in a world that's busy and noisy, and you have to be masterful at getting attention. Yep. Attention is one of the newest assets around. Like, it's always been a valuable asset, but now it's commoditized, meaning we can get some. Because before you had to pay TVs and radio, you had to pay to play. But now with social media, in a large sense, you don't have to pay that much to play. But you are now in charge of your attention seeking. So when you get the attention, you can then wield a message to that audience, and that's a powerful asset. And so part of the process of our books and our podcast was to have this to irritate people a little bit. Like, you have to be, what's it called? You have to be polarizing, right? As you know. So it's just about being a bit polarizing. So you have people attack you a little bit. That's okay. If it serves a greater purpose of educating people, I'm okay to be attacked a little bit. And I'm on a very small scale. I get attacked. It's not huge, but why not? Right?
And that's one of the main things we always drill into clients. We have to stand up for something, right?
Yeah.
You have to find what's your specific angle on your specific field of expertise, and you have to stand up for something and be okay with the opposite band to it. The ones that are going to be louder as well.
Yeah.
But guess what? Just the same way there will be some people that don't agree with you and that will attack you. There's also the opposite end that will get on board with you.
Yeah, totally.
That's the people that we want to focus on.
Totally. Yeah, it's interesting because, when we caught up the other day for dinner, we were talking about Bitcoin. And you said, really, if that's polarizing for you, it's a topic, you need to double down on that. And it was a good reminder that that's probably an area to do more videos on. Yeah, it's a fun, polarizing topic because there's such a vehement following with Bitcoin. Like
we're gonna get into that one in a second,
right?
Yeah,
so it's a religion. So it's like talking about religion. Yeah. You get the same reaction.
We'll get into that one in a second. But if someone is listening to this and they don't own a share, they don't have a property investment or anything like that, why should they invest?
Well, investing is the process by which you take some of your capital. Now, some people borrow capital and some people save it up or create cash, right? You either borrow the cash or you create the cash or save up. And the whole idea of the investing process is to safely deploy that cash into either lending it out. There's two ways to invest effectively. You either lend money out and get a return, right? Or you buy an asset that then gives you a return. And they're the only two mechanisms for investing money. Now, if you look at the one side of it, which is actually buying assets, which is what investing typically is, you can invest in a pair of shoes, and if that's going to get you more dates, that could be a good investment. If you can invest in a business that's going to amplify your income, that's a pretty good investment. But traditionally, when people say investing, they mean like investing where you put your money to work and your money's doing the work. So we'll stay around that area. And the two major assets would be public, so businesses, either private or public, and public businesses are shares. So you buy shares in public businesses. They're businesses that are so large that they're listed on the stock exchange and the public can buy and sell shares in the business. But mark my words, when you buy shares, you own a piece of the company legally. So you can buy pieces of public companies, businesses, which is good, right? It's a pretty good idea, especially if they're good. Not such a good idea if they're not. Or real estate, right? And real estate's a very simple asset because it serves the purpose of providing shelter. And you get rent and it grows in value, hopefully, okay? So if you look at investing, the process of investing is taking your cash and investing it into shares or real estate. And why that's often a great idea is because your money will work while you sleep. It'll work while you're resting. It'll work 24/7, 7 days a week, never take a rest day, never have a day off, never
calling
whinge,
in
never
sick.
whine, never calling it just works and works. So it's about and how it works is the asset is productive and it works. So if you buy a farm and you have someone to run it, it's a productive asset that produces crop or cattle and grows in value. If you buy traditional real estate and residential, it provides shelter for someone, they pay you rent and hopefully goes up in value from land price appreciation. Or you buy shares in the business and it grows in value over time. So the asset is what grows. The money doesn't grow. So just so people know, when you invest and you buy assets, your money, your cash is gone. The person who sold you the asset now has your cash and you own an asset, right? And it will grow in value and produce income. And that's the reason that's good is because who doesn't want some passive income from dividends or rent? And who doesn't want to have their capital grow while they sleep? So it's a matter of like getting your money to work harder than you do. And I think that's a very interesting and enjoyable process because money is a measure of time. And so if we can produce more money without taking our time, we're effectively producing more time modules in the future. So we're like creating more time for freedom and choice and those things. And I don't know many people that don't want that.
And that what you say there at the very end, I love it, which is money is essentially time. And I see it as stored human energy.
Yes.
Because you can grab that money
Yes.
and pay someone to
Yes.
do the things that maybe you need to do or you're supposed to do
Yes.
and get your time back.
Yes.
Which is one of the most powerful feelings that you could ever get.
Totally. And that's why my new book, actually, that I've just finished, it will be launched next year. Well, soon. It's called Time Rich. Because what I'd learned, because I've been consulting around business and money and investing for years. And more recently with mentorship, taking people through the mentorship experience around the financial topics and education, I noticed that a lot of my students, they come to learn about money and improve their financial IQ. But what I noticed was the reason they had challenges with their money is because they were challenged with how they manage their time. And so that's what prompted the new book. And you're exactly right. There's a liberating experience. It's actually a wealth creation experience when you actually create time. You become a time alchemist. And if you can do that through the power of elimination and leverage and priority and, having a good focused purpose, which are what I talk about in the book, you can conjure up time. And as a result, you conjure wealth. And that's what people don't recognize in the wealth game, right? That's why, I had this old paradigm, I've got to get more business. If I get more businesses, I'm going to be busier. And that's this, or if I have to make more money, I'll be busier. I want more freedom. But if you really understand time, alchemy, which is what you understand, right? Because you said, you feel liberated when you buy back your time. And if you can do that, then you're on the path to wealth creation, actually.
Absolutely. And another thing that I've seen is that the more you progress, especially in business or in your specific thing, it should be getting easier, but money should be going up. So the time, the input that you should have into it should be less, and the amount of money that you get in return should be going up if you're doing things correct.
Yes. It will go like this. When you first start out, you're really busy and you have no money, and you will see it go like that. And that's, you're on the right track. Because you can't scale your time.
Exactly.
You can't, because you have 24 hours in a day. So you can scale your money beyond your time. And that's where, as soon as you detach your money making from your time, you can build wealth.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Someone is listening to this and he's like, okay, Lloyd, I'm listening, but I'm still not in. I'm not convinced I need to invest. I will, you know what? I would rather save my way to wealth. What would you say to that person?
Well, I mean, it's possible. It's possible. But for example, if you're in business and you're making a ton of cash flow, it means at some point you've been good at investing because you've invested in yourself and your skills, and somewhere along the line, you've invested in growing your business. So you're already investing. And what is also interesting is people say, I don't know about investing. I'm like, do you have a superannuation fund? They go, yes. I'm like, you already invest. They go, what do you mean? I'm like, your superannuation fund owns shares. And it's probably your biggest retirement asset. So your biggest retirement asset that you own, that 10% of your money goes into, is shares. So the thing you're afraid of doing, you're already doing. I don't know, you can save, but for what purpose? Where people cannot see 2 moves ahead on the chessboard. They can't. They're just living today. They're like, this is how people live. They can't see further forward. And they can't see, if they're 40 today, they just can't see at 80. They can't see 70. They can't see 50. And so what happens is they don't invest because they live in the present and they just YOLO the shit out of their life every day. That's fine. That's because we are going to die. So I get it. But statistically, you're going to live till 85 in Australia. 80, 85. So when you're young, you can have no money and still get around. But when you're old, it sucks to have no money because you don't have as much hustle and energy, right? And so those years will sneak up. And I see it time and time again. Those that didn't invest when they were younger and learn the craft of investing and learn the money stuff and deploy their capital into buying assets instead of clothes and trips and shoes and blah, 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 it catches up with them. And I hear this every day just about. Well, not every day, that's a bit extreme, but like a lot. And it's, I wish I have done this sooner, because you're going to turn 60 and 70, whether you like it or not. You're either going to turn 60 and 70 with a couple $1 million because you've invested, or you're going to turn 60 and 70 with no money. And your superannuation probably is going to save you, because the reality is it's not going to be enough to cover your lifestyle. So either delay your gratification and start buying assets now if you want to have a good life later, or have a good life now and have a crappy life later. Your choice, right? But I don't want to be someone who's in a basic nursing home for the last 20 years of their life because they don't have money, they don't have a dollar, right? I don't want to be that. I want to be abundantly creating wealth until I'm 100, and I want to be around good people and build businesses and play this game for as long as I can because I enjoy it. And investing's part of that, because you have to be good at investing to build a good business and good people and your own skills. So if you don't want to, great, more for me.
And
I'll
for
go.
me,
I'll do it.
and
I
for
don't
me.
care, whatever.
I'll take yours too.
I'll take it. Whatever.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. No one's coming to save you, man, and no one cares as much as you do. So you should do something about it. And money, it is important, like you were saying earlier. It is up there with oxygen. Is that one thing that, and the more I run into issues, the more I realize that 90% of issues can be solved with money.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's paying someone that is better than you at a specific thing and go and get it done, or is you getting your time back, or is you getting access to the best healthcare, or is you getting access to the best food.
Yeah.
Like it
100%. Like, of course. My friend says, Lloyd, money greases the wheels of life.
I love that.
And I always think about that. And it really does. I'm like, and if you think about what that means, like in practical terms, like what you're getting at, I recently had, I came down with appendicitis like a couple of months ago. I was like, I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm like, shit, like what the heck? And I'm like, doing Google. I think I have appendicitis. I'm off to the hospital. And then I walk in there, I pay $600 to see the emergency department on a flipping Sunday. Yeah, here's $600, done, just put me in there. And then the doctor said, okay, you got appendicitis, we're gonna have to take it out. Great, here's the money. Consultant, extra fees on a Sunday, here's the money. Anesthetist on a Sunday, extra money, here's the money. Boop, boop, boop. Save me. Give me my health back. Done. Money greased that wheel. And I didn't have to think twice about it, And a buddy of mine came up with an opportunity with me. He said, hey, do you want to do this deal? I said, yep, sounds good. It's a good deal. And I had the money. Recently we hosted an event with Ty Lopez in Sydney, Morgan and I. And, Morgan kind of created this idea, and he was talking to the team, and he said, hey, you want to do this? I was like, yeah. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I had no money. So it makes your life go. And you notice you have more problems when you don't have it. So like, and not that I feel like I don't have enough, but we're going through this business acquisition and I just don't have FU money yet. Like I have a little bit, so I'm like, I could do it, but I'm playing a longer game. So I'm like, damn, if I just had more money, I could just have got rid of this as a borrowing partner. And so straight away, like I'm not rich enough yet because there's still problems that I encounter that money can solve. So whilst ever I'm engaging in problems that money can solve and I'm having to deal with those problems, I'm not rich enough yet.
Yes.
Because why would I deal with those problems if I had enough money,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So I'm still on that journey too, and most people who will be listening to this would be. So keep getting the money to keep solving the problems, and the problems just get bigger that money can solve. So like when I go in our car, for example, if I have to park somewhere, I don't give it. I'll park where I don't care because I'm like, that's $5, $10, 35. It doesn't matter. It gets me closer and faster to where I want to go. So I'm happy to pay the money. It greases the wheels, but then eventually it greases bigger wheels. So like, well, now I don't have to. Like if you want to go and buy a multi-million-dollar penthouse to live in because you want to just level up your lifestyle, cool. But just buy cash. Then you don't have to worry about borrowing and lending. Now, that's not always ideal, but like just whenever you have to encounter third parties to make things go, it's harder. You know what I mean? Whereas if you can like just pay someone to deal with it, or pay or buy the asset outright, or just don't even worry about borrowing partners and stuff, life's just simpler, you know?
It's easier.
It's easier. And I think that's a good objective.
I have a friend that he's being able to make multiple 8 figures. And you mentioned something there that brought me back to a conversation that I had with him, because I was just, because that's where I'm heading, right? And I was like, he's already on that mountain. And I'm like, almost trying to understand, dude, tell me how is the view? Tell me what you
Yeah.
saw up there, right?
Yeah.
And he was just describing pretty much the same mountain view almost that I'm in, just with a lot more access, a lot more network, a lot more relationships, a lot more easiness, right?
Yeah.
But one thing that he said is, I still feel like I don't have enough.
Yes. Yeah.
And he was talking to someone that has more than him.
Yeah.
And they were like, I think I don't have enough.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, the higher the level, the higher the devil. So you'll always encounter problems. I think it's like what Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett have said is that they had a lot of friends. They're like Warren's worth 100 billion, and Charlie was worth about 3 billion when he died. So they're multi-billionaires. And they said, and then a lot of their friends are very wealthy people, obviously. They said, you know what we noticed as we got wealthier, that our friends who went and leveled up their lifestyle, they didn't get happier. But we kept our lifestyle much the same, and we were happy because we enjoy the game of it. And so I think it's like, there's all these other stories you hear about. That particular, I forget the guy's name, but he was at a party and he noticed one of these billionaires there who was very unhappy and always looking for the next dollar. And he said, you know what we have that billionaire doesn't have? His friend said, what? And he said, enough. And that's an interesting area to explore, because in business, if you have enough, it means you have no discontentment. It means you're content. And what's really interesting about that is you're then at peace. And if you're at peace and you have no discontentment, you have no fuel to move. You have no pain. So you have no motivation left. So like the gazelle that sits on its laurels will be eaten by the cheetah. That can happen. So you want to have a very good asset base before you go, I'm content and happy now, because you'll get eaten otherwise. And so discontentment is a very powerful fuel. You're discontent with where you're at. Your friend is still discontent where they're at. So that will power the fuel to play the game. As long as you can maintain a level of joy and presence and peace occasionally, you can play that game. But you do have to always contend with yourself. Am I just doing this to get more? Alex Hormozi famously says, you've already achieved the goals that said you were going to make you happy. And you're not happy yet. So find joy in the game. I think what he's done well is he says, you know what? I tried to find the happiness thing. He went after happiness. He goes, I just was upset. Like I couldn't find it. Because you know what? I'm just going to work. I'm just going to go and work, and then whatever will be. And he said, that's where I found joy. So I think it's a very philosophical topic about contentment and how much you want or need. And you play these games in your head. Everyone plays these games. Once I have this and this and this, then I'll be happy. And I think the trick is to find happiness in the process. Marry the process and divorce the outcome. Yeah.
In the climbing of the mountain.
Totally.
Not the top.
Yes.
Fall in love with the climbing of the mountain.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I interviewed Simon Beard on my podcast, and Simon, I went to school with him actually. And he sold his business fairly recently for a valuation of about 600 million, right? And he kind of left some in shares and took 300 million off the table. It's a very well-known story. And he was 300 million in cash, which is incredible. Plus, he's still got ownership of the shares. And so he obviously founded and sold Culture Kings. That was his business. And fascinating story. And I asked him the same question. I was like, what's it like? Like, what's 300 million like? At his age too, like he's probably late 30s. Well, he is 38, 39. And so, like, what is that like with all this life still left in you? He's got the penthouse, I think, at Seoul. He loves Lambo. He's brought up his Lambo. He's a cool dude. And so he's got it. And so I'm having this conversation with him about it. He's like, it's like, I'm sure he's super proud that he exited so well and he built this incredible wealth legacy. But he's still working. Like he gets up in the morning at about 4:30, 5 o'clock. He still goes through the same motions because he knows that that's what gives him this sense of, he's still fierce. He's still got it. And he knows that's where it got into where he got to. So why would you compromise that? But he's still adding value. And we go to his Instagram, he's still adding value. So he's very much still probably in the game, just at a higher level. So I think he said to me after 30 million, he said it was either on one of his things where he said to me, after 30 million, you can do pretty much anything you want to do lifestyle-wise with 30 million. So I think you have to find other things besides money after that. So get to your 8 figures, but just know when you hit 30 million net assets, you may need something else besides discontentment to motivate you.
I find they fuel every single day.
Yeah.
At my mission, it goes way beyond me. I want to show people all around the world, and especially back home, that it doesn't matter if you were born in a third world country.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you didn't have the money, if you didn't have if you weren't tall, if you weren't strong. You can literally turn yourself into whatever you want and absolutely create in this life anything you want to get. So I have to go and do it myself so I can showcase that anyone can do it, because there was nothing special about me.
Yeah. And also you're mission led.
Yeah.
So like you're on a mission.
Yeah.
And of course, if you're mission led, that's the only way to be unstoppable, right? Because you've got internal motivators. Yeah. But also I dare say with you, much the same as me, we're developing parts of our business now. We've got a new book launch and we're developing other parts of our high value offers and stuff. And it's because it's an area of exploration in yourself. Yeah. So it's like, can I do this? Yeah. Am I capable? Can I solve this piece of the business puzzle? Yeah. And can we go on a fun journey with some good kick-ass people? Yeah. And can we impart value to the world and change people's lives at the same time? So it's win, win, win outcomes. Yeah. And as a byproduct of that, you make more money, and it's a fun, cool adventure to go on, So my friend Gavin, a dear friend Gavin, he's been teaching and coaching men about masculinity for years. I think he's the best in the business, frankly. And he said, a man needs 3 things to be a good man and a happy man and a joyful man and live in masculinity. He said he needs a battle to fight, an adventure to go on, and a woman to rescue. And you've got this battle. It's a fight. Business is a fight. And it's also largely an adventure. So if you're a man, it covers off 2 of the core components. And if you are a man who is fighting battles and is on mission on an adventure, you automatically become more attractive to a woman. Yeah. You do. So if you get those 2 ones right, typically you'll attract hopefully the right person, and then that'll satisfy that. And you see this with men, if they just kind of fall to pieces, they're not fighting a battle, they're not going on adventures, and they've got a woman, but they can't, the relationship falls down because the other 2 are out of kilter. Yeah. So I think, I was talking to Morgan the other day about this, I think the success runs through the masculine. Mm-hmm. So if you see a woman who's successful, it would probably stem from the father. And if a man, same thing. So if you see men and a man who's not successful, typically his father hasn't been. And it's this weird, not always the case, because if you have that father who's not successful, you've found it in some other male figure. Yep. But it's rarely a female-led, it's not a feminine energy, it's a masculine thing. So I think it's just interesting that we're talking about money on this show, right? Like, why is Lloyd talking about masculine energy and feminine? Because if you want to be wealthy, you have to find these very driven, generally very masculine energy mentors. Because business, wealth creation, time creation, money creation, that's an aggressive game. It's a battle. It's a combat. Yes, it's combat. And so you have to have grit. You have to have determination. And these are all generally heavy masculine energies. They are. Because if you look at females who are quite successful in business, they will carry a lot of this energy. So I think it's like, find that mentor who can do those things and be that man or woman who wants to be the driver. And also if you're a woman and you want to live in the feminine, it's not that. And that's where my part, like I have this wonderful marriage. I'm so lucky and blessed, but it's like my wife and I she lives in her feminine. Can live in the masculine occasionally if she loses control and safety, of course, but we try and live in those energies, and our wealth is better because that happens, So I think it's important for the listeners to understand that man and woman living in their energies effectively as a partnership, and you as a man being on mission and an adventure, and a woman being very supportive in that, that's what creates this incredible wealth creation as a partnership. And you look at Alex and Layla Hormozi, that they're in that, you guys are probably in that, right?
We are totally in that. You're saying this and it's describing exactly my own relationship and how much quicker you can get the things that you want and get ahead in the business game, in life, in everything, if you have the right partner.
Totally.
If you make that wrong decision, I've seen how it has completely fucked people's lives and money.
Yeah, totally. I mean, look, I've seen it where if a woman doesn't have safety, and safety and security is the highest feminine, it's the highest value of a feminine. And if that's compromised because the man doesn't get after a mission and go and get after the wealth and the relationship will collapse, because the woman will start concerting control and she'll go get it. And then you'll lose this, polarizing sexual, the energy will fall away.
Yeah.
So I noticed last quarter, I have the most bloodiest battle in my whole business in the last quarter, because I'm doing so much at once, buying businesses and running events and launching a new book and running a coaching business and running a network marketing business and running a multi-million dollar portfolio and making acquisitions and lending money. There's so much going on because I'm enjoying the game of playing. But I know my wife sees how I am. It's aggressive. It's a battle. She sees me fight and she's supporting me and she's there. And it's so much. I wouldn't be able to do it without her. I wouldn't want to do it without her. There's times in my past where I've been single and I haven't had focus and I haven't had a desire. It works really well when you've got a great partner.
Yeah, and focus is a big one to just stay on track and not get derailed by other stuff.
Yeah, and also even last night, I'm talking to her, I'm openly asking her questions, and it's such you just need that sounding board. And she knows, she'll sit there and go, yep, and she'll listen. And she knows I'm just trying to, I'm trying to get things out, and she'll be intently listening. And I'll make sure I do the same thing with things that are not business related that are important to her. So if I'm listening to her, I'll try as best I can put my phone away and just I'm listening now.
Present.
Yes. Whether she's talking about the day at the gym, whatever. I'm just you need that both ways. And I'm conscious of that because I know that she does that with me so well. So I don't want to not pay that back and make sure I'm there for her in different respects. But if you're in business on mission, you're creating a lot of safety and security because you're hunting, you're foraging, you're bringing bacon back. You're
bring the meat. That's how I tell the team. Brought the meat today, boys.
That's right. So you got to be doing that. Otherwise, she's how am I going to eat? Yeah. So
going back to what we were speaking about investments, right? Let's say that person now is okay, Lloyd, you got me. I'm going to invest.
Yes.
Should I do property or shares and why?
Look, the most important thing is you got to educate yourself. There's no sense if they listen to this Lloyd said on the show, go shares, so I'm going to go shares. Or Lloyd said to go real estate, so I'm just going to go real estate. Because you've got to begin the journey of education. So if you want to learn about shares, do a course, read books that are going to help you become educated around, how do you assess a company? What's an index fund? What's an online broker account? How do I physically buy the shares, which is where you set up an online broker and you go and buy an index fund, which is a basket of stocks, that follows an index performance. And why is that a good idea? And what's a good one? And why is it safe? And do I understand it? Because if you go and invest in shares or index funds and you don't understand what you're buying, the market will fall and you'll poop your pants and you'll sell and you'll lose money. Fact, you will. Yeah. So it has to start with education. Same as real estate. I went and looked at a deal yesterday and it shows up for $600,000. It's pulling in $97,000 a year income. It's what? I was really? that's incredible. Like if that's the case, I'm buying this today. And so I called up the agent and I was like, hey, listen, I'm inquiring about this property. You said it's pulling in 97K, but it's 590K to buy. And she goes, well, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, that's amazing. She goes, yeah. And then the operator will take this. I'm like, okay, so how much does the operator take for finding the holiday letting? And they said, oh, they'll take 50% of the income. So I said, okay, so it's not 97,000. So you've just completely falsely advertising. Is that right? Oh, yeah. So it's that type of quick, it took me 5 minutes. It's a 5-minute conversation to see where I'm going to explore it further. But you have to understand some basics around property, about the yield, the location, the depreciation, the operating costs of it. And you have to do quick sums in your head to decide, is this a good place for my capital? And I did that in 5 minutes yesterday. And so to answer your question, shares or property, both are good under certain circumstances. And I love both. I love shares more than property because of the ease and simplicity and liquidness and the mental game. I do. I have I love that side of it. But also, I'm a background. My background is I'm a fully licensed agent. I'm a lawyer. I'm a property lawyer. I had background in real estate development. I've run a property investment planning practice for years. I've been around that area for a long time. It's my whole background. So I also understand it, but I'm not in love with it at the moment because it's a nosebleed price at the moment locally. So yes, I would buy real estate if I could find a good deal. If I was exploring it, I'd probably find one, but I'm not exploring deals there. But I'm more finding deals in shares, and I do like that because it's liquid. And so my bulk of our wealth is in shares and private businesses. So I would say to someone, start with education. Shares are easier to get into because you can start with as little as, well, frankly, you can start with $1. If you go and set up a micro investing app, there's many of them, like Raise is an Australian one, there's Spaceship, there's others, right? If you set that up, which doesn't take very long, 15 minutes, you can start investing with $1. But just start. I think that's simple, and that's why shares are good because anyone can start. And I'll say this, if you don't have the discipline to open a brokerage account or have a micro investing account and get it to $100,000, if you can't do that, then you probably aren't going to do well at bigger investments or even real estate because you just can't. You have no discipline. So I think it's a good litmus test. So maybe the suggestion would be, well, look, to start out, why don't you start micro investing and see if you can get to 5,000 or 10,000 invested? Got that. Cool. Now I can learn a bit more and continue your education journey, maybe get into investing in shares and maybe have a goal of 100,000 in an index fund. That's a good next goal. Charlie Munger has famously said the first 100,000 is a bitch, but he said that in 1995. So I would say with inflation, the first 200,000 is a bitch. So maybe set up a goal like, I'll get my index fund to 200,000. That's a great goal. And you'll learn so much on that journey about yourself. And then once you've hit it, go, okay, now I've got the money. I've probably got a deposit for real estate. If I can find a good deal, let me educate myself there. Let me do courses. Let me talk to professionals. Let me talk to mentors and let me figure out what's a good deal and maybe take some money and put your first deposit down and buy your first piece of real estate. And doing those two things, both from a small step with micro investing up to then an index fund and then over to a basic residential property acquisition that's small. Like you can buy, I saw a property the other day. You can buy a property here locally. It's a one better. It's 189,000. So you can do that. Like I looked at a property near Bond University here a few years ago. It was 180,000 back then, and it was pulling in $500 a week, 25,000 a year. It's a good yield. And I was like, shit, I almost bought it. And for whatever reason, I didn't. But you can find those deals. I think they're 250 now. So go do that. Like take that small step because you learn lessons. Like things will go wrong. Like you'll learn the process of putting a contract down. You'll learn the process of putting your deposit. You'll learn the process of getting finance approval. Then you'll get the process of getting a lawyer to do your conveyancing. Then you'll learn the process of settling. Then you'll get a tenant. You'll have to manage a property manager and you'll get your tax return done. And they're all lessons you learn along the journey. But you've got to move through it, right? Like we're acquiring our first brick and mortar business at the moment. And I'm just like learning lesson after lesson after lesson. And I've learned so many lessons. I said to one of my business partners who's doing it with me, I said, well, we've worked out all the ways not to do it. Now we know next time we do it, we'll do this, this, and this. It's the same with shares. It's the same with real estate. If you don't participate in it, The best way to learn is to participate. So educate yourself first, but don't get addicted just to learning. Yeah. Like go and participate. It's like the whole saying, like the man in the arena, get on the goddamn field and start playing the game on a very small scale and you will learn better.
You need skin in the game. You can't stay in the sidelines and expect that you're going to get any kind of results. And it's going to hurt and it's going to be scary. There's no way around it. It doesn't matter how much you educate yourself. Putting your first batch of money towards an investment is fucking scary. I remember that feeling of just thinking like, I'm about to buy this thing, this share that I'm hoping is going to grow and all this stuff, right? But then it becomes way easier. And when you educate yourself as well, the decision behind it, it's way easier because you've done the research. You did the education. Okay, you believe in this thing.
Yeah.
You put money behind it.
Yeah. So when you have more education, you tend to de-risk it.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Diversification is insurance against ignorance. But if you're not diversified and you're putting all your eggs in one basket, then watch the basket and it'll work. So like if you got one business and you focus, it'll grow. If you get one stock or one piece of real estate and it's good, it's good. It's okay. But what people do is they get into this position where they think, well, just because I'm investing money, it means I'm going to lose it all. That's the paradigm. That's the mindset. That's why it's so fearful. Yeah. It's like, so when I invest, I'm going to lose everything, right? Because this is this whole programming from movies and parents and when you invest, you lose everything. The GFC program, the whole generation. Yeah. So that's why it's scary and spooky. But the reality is, if you have a little bit of education and you step first, you're not going to, unless you're an idiot and you go and bet on some penny stock mining thing that your drunk uncle told you about, you're probably going to lose money. Yeah. But that's not what you do. And so the chances of you losing money when you invest are very slim if you have a bit of education. But what's fascinating is this happened to me recently. In fact, about 2 years ago, I'm on a yacht. A friend of ours, multi-millionaire, he invited my wife and I to go on his yacht. We won this trip with one of our businesses. We earn trips, and we won a trip to Cabo, and we stayed at the Hilton in Cabo, Mexico. So we're over there, and he said, "Listen, while you're there, I'll be there on this trip too. Let's hang out and let's go on my yacht for a week in the Sea of Cortez." I'm like, "Cool, that sounds good." He's like, all right. So we went there and we jumped on his yacht and he took us around the Sea of Cortez. Amazing adventure. It was so fun. Some fun stories that happened on that trip. And anyway, it's a whole different episode. But where I was on the trip, he's talking to me about this private equity deal he's in. And so when you get around multi-millionaires, these are the conversations. I said, that's pretty cool, man. Like, I don't have any private equity holdings, but I like the sound of the business. It sounds good. Can I talk to the CEO? He said to me, if you want, I can hook you up with the CEO. I was like, cool. So talk to the board and then the team, the CEO. I met the CEO of the company. It's this company that's expanding drastically through India. It's amazing, right? Online banking business. And I was like, I looked at all the details, the financials, went and analyzed it all based on the education that I had developed over a number of years. I said, this is fairly reasonable, but I didn't put everything in it. I was like, I'm going to allocate a small bit because there's a risk that this business doesn't do what it says, or it's in its early stages of growth. It's earning revenue. It's an operating business. It's not like a startup, but it is scaling. And so the opportunity is, well, if you can get into a business that's in its early infancy of growth and you can ride the wave of 10 years of growth, particularly a business like that with good people in it, and that's why I was looking at, getting to know the CEOs, like, is this a good person? They're trustworthy people. They're good people. So all these things are going on as you decide to deploy money. So I'm like, okay, I think it all stacks up. And I had to put in some money. Now, it wasn't a lot of money, right? By my standards. But it was still money. It was still like, this would suck to lose this. And my wife is so smart. I'm thinking, hey, I asked her, like, hey, should we do this? Should we, like, make sense? She goes, does it make sense financially? I'm like, yeah. Do you like the people? Yeah. She goes, well, wouldn't it be cool if it was a $60,000 position? It was tiny, right? And so I'm limiting my risk. So I'm like, well, I can put in like $60,000 or $100,000 in this. And if it 10Xs, we'll take $1 million out, right? And my first foray into a bit of private equity. And so I said to her, well, yeah, I think I can do it. She goes, well, think of it like this. What if it's you buy the equity in shares, but imagine the conversations you'll get around once you own this. is in it'll bring you closer to this person. It'll bring you closer to this person. You'll be able to meet and catch up with the CEO. Like, you'll be a shareholder of this new business. I was like, that's a clever way of putting it. And since then, a buddy of mine who's in the C-level of the business, he said, Lloyd, do you know anyone we can talk to about raising capital? And I said, well, yeah, I can introduce you to someone. And introduce them to the person that specializes in raising capital for these types of businesses. And now I'm privy to those conversations. And since then, I've had 2 conversations on Zoom with billionaires. And I've been able to see how this person operates with raising capital. And I've learnt a ton. And my wife said to me at the start, what about the mentorship and learning experience you'll get for this one investment? So you're right, you can lose money for sure. But there are other things you get when you invest, when you've got skin in the game. It's a network. It's an experience. One day you can be invited by Nelson to come on his podcast and you can tell a story like that might help people. But if I had said no, how can I even impart the lessons I've learned so far, the friends I've made? And the business is it's probably going to hopefully 10x for us. So there's more than just the money aspect when you're investing. Yeah. And I think people have to understand that.
The discipline, the mental aspect to it, like you said, the network, and the things that you just don't know at that point in time. So I completely agree with that.
Yeah, totally. So I think it's interesting.
If someone has to, let's say, because this is a thing that I realized for myself as well. A few years back, it was almost a decision of, I'm not making enough money, right? So it's like, I could start putting money towards investing, which I did. But then I realized that for me, it was a way more powerful decision and higher leverage to put that capital towards my business and myself, right?
Yes.
So where do you draw the line in terms of investing in yourself beyond, like, compared to investing in an asset?
Yes.
And which one should you pick? At what point does it make sense to go to the other one?
Well, you can't earn more money even in a business unless you have invested something in your skill set and personal development. So you are the asset. You're the best asset to invest in. So for my first, up until I was the age of probably 30, yeah, I mean, even beyond, I still do it even. Like, I always do it. So I can't say it ever stopped. But for all my 20s, and early to my early 30s, I had invested, 100,000 in like personal, like my CFA charter, and I was investing in myself. I wasn't making that much money. I was also investing in mentorship and skills, and it got me access to see how things are done. So my whole 20s, I didn't make much money. In fact, in my first part of my 30s, I didn't make much money either. But I wasn't seeking money. I was seeking skills. I was seeking self-belief. I was seeking education and skills. They're the 2 big things I was seeking. And I knew one day that would pay off. And so you are the best investment of that first bit of capital. Then when you have the skills and you have the education and you have developed a bit of a network because you've done work for other people and so forth, you can save up a bit of money. You can start. And I think the next best step is to start a business. Not invest in, start a business, not buy a business. Depends. Buying a business, great, but there's a lot of risk on the table if you don't know what you're doing in a business. So you start a business, like what's happened to you. The next best return on equity, return on your capital, yes, it's continuously you, but not as much, is your business. So what you invest in is people and systems and marketing and advertising, right? The things a business needs first is advertising and marketing. Then it needs people to carry out things. So people leverage, then it needs systems leverage. So it needs those things, and you'll get a higher return on capital, on your cash, in your own business than you will generally in stocks or real estate, because it's a high risk game in business. So you will get a commensurate return for the risk you're taking. So that's always a good idea. But once you've kind of launched the business and it's running and you have consistent profits, right? It is imperative, I think personally, to take out a portion of your profits, not a lot. So let's say, for example, your business is making 10 grand a year profit and you start out. Great. Some businesses don't make that. Like Tony Robbins says, 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. He goes, that doesn't mean any of them are profitable. Yeah. So like, it doesn't even mean it's profitable. Yeah. Like most people aren't profitable in their business. So if you've got a profit of 100 grand a year, well done. You're probably selling $300,000 to $400,000 worth of stuff, which is awesome. So like if you've got 100 grand profit, cool. I would take out like, 5 to 10,000 a year, take off the table and buy assets and divert. You've got to look after your future self a little bit. Now, if you put away into an index fund or a piece of real estate, you've got this asset that will grow at the same time you're growing your business. And I got to tell you, it won't make sense in the early days. But one day at 60, you'll be bloody happy you did that, because you can still have both. You can do, people are like, oh, but my business. I'm like, you can have both. They go, how do you know? Because I've got both. I have both.
Yeah.
We've got a.
I love that.
I've had both.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do you think you have one or the other?
Yeah.
It's
impossible, Lloyd.
I got it, man.
No, it's not. It's here. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Now here's a caveat. Would I have made more money in my business if I had taken that capital and put it there? Potentially, yes. But am I more powerful as a business owner and entrepreneur now, knowing that I've got a couple mil? I can put my hands on millions in a click, right? And does that make me more powerful as an entrepreneur? Because Alex Hormozy says, the minute you can really bet, because all of our business profits now go back into our business. Like, when you have assets that produce passive income to you and it gives you complete freedom of time, you can put all your business. Like, if we make, for example, let's say we do a 600, let's say we do $1 million in profit in our businesses in a year. If I've got assets that are producing income and don't need to level up my lifestyle too drastically, because I'm playing the long game, we can invest $100 million. Was that a good investment for the whole million? Probably not, but there's elements of what you can spend the money on to scale, like video podcasting or different ads or like we've invested almost 100,000 in our new book. Systems, CRM, we spent thousands on our systems this year. So there's elements of investing in the business that will grow it, but you can't put everything in your business and expect to get a return from everything either. You invest in your business and sometimes you lose money. Yeah. So I think if you just set aside some, like I always set aside a little bit, and that's accumulated to be a multi-million-dollar asset, which is amazing, because now I can walk into rooms or understand that I've got it there. And I think it makes me a more powerful entrepreneur because I don't need to drive profit from my businesses to live. So I guess the lesson here I want to impart is you can do both. It's okay to do both, Nice to have options.
I love it. You being able to grow a 7-figure portfolio. How, because to a lot of people that will be like, that's insane. How do you even get to that? Especially if they have zero today, right?
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone that is building a 7-figure portfolio? And how much cash flow can you expect passively from a 7-figure portfolio?
Yeah. Investing in shares is a very tricky game. It's not complex. It's quite simple. The principles are simple and the process is fairly simple, but it's tricky because it's you have yourself in the way, your emotions in your brain and so forth. And so because it's such a liquid asset, you can I could hit a button, as I said, and put my hands on millions of dollars, and then that's a problem too. Because then I can just liquidate the portfolio, put it into one opportunity, and all of a sudden, oh shit, I was wrong. Gone. That's actually, you can blow your portfolio for sure. So you have to understand those things. So because I started when I was 23, and this is why I've been able to do both, because I just built that slowly over time, the portfolio, and I built the businesses over time too. I started with $2,000. And I remember I bought my first shares, Westpac Bank shares. And I bought them because they were paying a 6% tax-free dividend. In Australia, you can get tax-free dividends, income. So I thought, this is cool. I'll buy a piece of the bank. I don't think the bank's going to go out of business soon. I'll buy the bank, right? So I'm starting the journey. I'm in Australia. I didn't know that much. And so I'm just making that first step. And then I learned more and I decided to invest in different businesses. And so my suggestion to people who are trying to do this would be, like anything, model mentors, model the best. And if you can go to this website called dataroma.com, and you can actually track the portfolios of all the world's multi-billionaire investors, the best in the world. So that's a good place to start to figure out learn about their lives. So I became a student of Warren Buffett. I've read flipping everyone. I spent 7 hours on this Sunday listening to the Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting, taking notes. And I've watched that meeting. I've read his shareholder letters from 1965 to today. I've done a lot of interesting reading and research into these people's lives. So don't just model the billionaires, learn about them. How do they invest? What are the principles? You can learn a ton from Warren Buffett. So learn from them and then put your money into, start. But he'll tell you, he says, Warren Buffett says, 99% of people who aren't going to be professional investors and read 70 hours a week of reports and 10Ks and company annual reports and earnings calls and really get into it, then they're better off to buy an index fund. And you can outperform 90% of the professionals if you just buy an index fund. So really, if I can give myself some advice back when I was 23, I would have probably, knowing what I know now, just put money into one or two good quality index funds in America and added to it over time. And I think I told you the other night, didn't I? If I had have done that, we'd be $1 million richer. So I think that's the suggestion I give myself if I was starting out. And it's easy to do that. It's actually easier. Shares is one of the things where it's actually less work to get richer. And I think I've worked that out. But I'm addicted to the game. So like I love buying undervalued securities. I actually buy individual stocks, but I wouldn't ever encourage people to do that. I would encourage them to do what Warren says. He says index, add to it, dollar cost average into an index, and then it's not advice, it's just what he says. And I think that's pretty smart. And again, if I had done that, I'd be richer. So take that as a lesson if you want to take it. But I love finding undervalued businesses. It's a joy. It's fun. Like a business at the moment, we put this position in the last week. Been watching this business for quite a while. It's a Chinese company. Anyway, it's selling for, like, people have to understand that shares are businesses. So this particular business, a lending company in China, big one. It's a big one. And it's gone from $50 a share down to about, single digits. Anyway, if you bought the whole company and you sold its net tangible, so if you took its assets, right, it's got 35 billion in assets, it's got 22 billion in liabilities. Okay, so if you take its assets minus its liabilities, it's got 13 billion in net tangible assets. It means you could break up the company, sell off the tangible assets worth 13 billion. So the company in its book value or its equity is worth 13 billion. Okay. So if you take the 13 billion and divide it by the number of shares, which is 573 million shares, then you get to a net tangible asset per share of about $19. So the shares are worth book value $19, but you can buy it for like $5. So just doing that analysis and seeing to buy a company that's worth $19 a share, you can buy it for $5 a share. It's fairly clear to see there's a mispricing in the market on that business, right? And then what I found out was that it's got $9 billion in cash. So it's got it's got $5 billion in cash. $9 per share is cash. So Nelson, if I was to give you $9 in cash and I said, but I want $5 back, would that be a good deal? Yeah, it'd be a no-brainer. Yeah. So this is the types of things you can find if you're an active investor. It's amazing. So of course that makes sense because eventually the price will sort itself out, hopefully, and you can make a lot of money in buying undervalued assets. Of course, but who's gonna sit at home and read annual reports, right? Yeah. And so this is what I love about the game because I'm trained, I've done it in my CFA charter, I live it and breathe. I love it. It's like if I could, you talk about people that want to make money, like talk about one thing forever that gets you off and you can talk about forever. For me, it's that. I talk about it forever. I love it. And that's why I got into the money education space, is because I like to talk about it. But if you're not prepared to do that, then don't do it. And just index and buy real estate and build a business around something you do love, Did we go off topic there? I mean, what was the question?
I love it because it just shows your passion about investing and basically what led you to have the portfolio that you have now. Now, once you build a 7-figure portfolio like yours, what kind of passive income can you
Yes,
see
that
out
was
of
a good
that?
question. Yeah. So look, it depends on what you own in the portfolio. So for example, if I owned, if the portfolio itself, let's say for example, you had $1 million portfolio. And by the way, I don't think my portfolio, I mean, we've got a great portfolio for my age. I think we've done pretty good for my age. It's quite unusual, which I'm pretty proud of. But at the same time, there's people out there that have like, you know, they've done so well. They leave me in the dust. So I'm not by all means the leading expert, but what I've learned is that with great power comes great responsibility. So if you've got a big portfolio, you have to be very careful with it. So if you want passive income, it depends what it owns. So if you had $1 million and you bought an index fund that was paying a 1.5% dividend, then your $1 million would produce $15,000 a year of income. Make sense? 1.5% times $1 million equals. If you bought a piece of real estate for $1 million and it was pulling in 5% rental yield, you'd make $50,000 in rental yield per year minus the operating costs and taxes. So you'd be down to about $25K. Okay, after that. So 25,000 over $1 million, that's what you'd earn in income. If you had a high yield index fund or some sort of put and call or sort of options trading index fund that they're out there, you can earn between 5 and 7% dividend yield. And so if you're getting a 5 to 7%, if you had $1 million, it's 50,000 to 70,000 a year in passive income. But what's interesting is I did this exercise only this week because I'm like, what if I decided to position our portfolio just for income? What would it look like? So I went and dissected in Australia, because in Australia you have these things called franking credits. And that means that the companies, when they pay you a dividend, which is a share of the profits, you don't have to then pay the tax on it up to 30% marginal rate. So you can actually have an element of tax-free income in Australia from dividends, which is incredible. So I was like, well, what if we position the portfolio for income? And so what I did was I went and looked at some of the best companies that paid the best dividends, right? So you look at some companies like, and again, not advice, but just throwing some names out there, like BHP and Fortescue pays a good dividend, and some of the banks do. And they're not the best companies, but they are pretty solid. They're not going to disappear. So you get some yields and you're like, okay, well, I put like 6 together. I was like, oh, we'll get some of these and we'll see. Like, okay. And I got the dividend yield to about average across the 6 companies at 6.6%, fully franked, which means if you had $1 million portfolio and you bought those stocks, those assets, you'd make $66,000 a year passively, tax-free, right? So that's like earning almost 100. It's like earning 95,000, right? So I think that would be an interesting position to have as a portfolio. That would be the best case outcome in the safest possible way, because you're diversified, fully franked dividends on companies that are good, fairly good quality that actually pay reasonably good dividends. So $1 million will turn into 66,000. 2 million, 120, 130,000. 10 million, and you can do the numbers. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And that leads me to one of the questions that I have for you. In my own investing, have invested into USA companies.
Okay.
I'm yet to invest
Yeah.
in an index fund or in companies in Australia. But I've seen obviously the franking credits. Because of the franking credits, in your opinion, does it make more sense, being based in Australia, to put most of your capital and resources towards Australian-based indexes or companies? Or obviously we have the shares that represent as well the American market, right? So in that sense, with the franking credits, is it a better option to do
Well,
that?
it depends on the objectives. Like if you had an objective where maybe you've built your businesses, you got all this cash, you've invested your money, maybe you've put some money in index funds, and you're 60 or you're 55, your whole objective turns to, I just want passive income. I just want to go and sit on the beach. I've done my battles and I'm done. So if your objective is income, then franking credits are good and higher dividend rates are good. But if your objective is capital appreciation and total return and trying to grow your wealth, it's not always the best to get high dividends, because it means the company is usually not growing as much. So it all boils down to the investor's objectives. What's their objectives and what's their risk profile? What are they prepared to take on in terms of volatility? And so America has the best companies, obviously. Apple, Google, like the best in history. And it'll continue to probably have the best companies because it's got this culture of developing the best companies. And that's a hard culture to break. So I think that if people were looking for capital growth, it would be, you probably want to own the best companies. And they don't pay high dividends. So you can't make that much income from them, right? Unless you own a lot of them, which is fine. But then, of course, they don't have franking credits. They don't pay a lot of dividends. In America, the companies buy back their stocks a lot because of the tax rulings in America. They're different to here in Australia. So, yeah, I like American businesses because of the growth potential. So in the wealth accumulation phase, America seems to make a lot of sense to me. In Australia, I like the franking credits. I like the high dividend rates. I like the companies that pay them. But the companies don't grow that much. So it's like, well, am I going to compromise putting my money in Australia to get income when over the next 20 and 30 years, I want to grow it? You know, like I'd love to be able to get, $50 to $100 million in the portfolio over the next 30 years. And it wouldn't make sense to do that if I was getting income from dividends. It would make sense to do it through capital appreciation, which you got to have the best companies to do that. So, so I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. In today's day and age for you, where are you putting your money?
Yeah. Well, our money is in, you could say it's almost all in businesses because shares are businesses. So our money is in equity ownership right now of 5 public companies, businesses that are publicly owned, right? So the shares. And then we have we have some in cash, some's in a term deposit, some's just in cash, like, just sitting there idle. And then the rest of it is in the working capital of our variety of businesses. And so we have 4, which we almost have 4. We're about to settle this business we just purchased. We'll settle in 2 weeks. We have 4 companies. And so there's working capital in those companies. And so those companies will produce a ton of income. And so our wealth is really tied up in those companies, those private businesses, and obviously our portfolio and some cash. And that's where it's situated now. I've also got a little bit in real estate. We own a percentage of a real estate development. And that's kind of where it's all, and we've got some private equity, right? Like I was telling you before. I've got to think about where it all is. And then that's where it's kind of spread around. But most of it is in portfolio and businesses. So that's where it lies because that's where the greatest return for me at this present time would be. It's interesting, not in traditional real estate. And I think about that sometimes and I think far out, like especially on the Gold Coast, we've had 60% price rises since 2020, which is incredible because it went nowhere for a long time. Would I be happier if I had have bought real estate back then and potentially got a 60% return? I don't think so because my money would be tied up in an asset that's not liquid, not flexible, doesn't produce the best income, highly, like a bit of management to it. So I look on paper, it'd look probably okay, but it wouldn't serve me with my purposes of building wealth over the next 20 years. So I don't like buying overpriced stuff. So I'm not in this market mind where I just want to go buy real estate right now. I'd like to own it. I'd love to have participated in that, but I can't bring myself to buy overpriced real estate. So it would be in that if I found it compelling. And last time I saw a compelling real estate market was 2009.
And the liquidity aspect to me, when it comes to shares, is probably the best thing.
Yeah, walking into a room to negotiate and teach and so forth and influence and also mentor, when you can put your hands on multiple millions of dollars at the click of a button, that's a very powerful sense of self-empowerment, great place to come from mentally because you are very flexible. And so when you've got it all tied up in a piece of real estate, man, like you're at the whims of the banks. Like if you want to take out some equity, you got to talk to someone about it. Yeah. Or you got to sell it. And that's that's at least a 90 to 6 month process. So it's different. And as an entrepreneur, I like to have the flexibility.
Yeah.
You know?
Is cash flow king?
Yes. Cash flow is king. Cash flow is king. Cash is helpful, but only helpful to buy cash flow. So cash is the best use of cash is to buy cash flow. And cash flow is more effective than even capital growth because cash flow will produce freedom. And so this business that we're purchasing at the moment, we're buying cash flow instantly and we're borrowing the whole amount. So think about that. People are like, why are you borrowing money? And I'm not into borrowing lots of, I'm not into credit card debt for consumer goods. I'm into borrowing money if I can get a way higher return from it elsewhere. So we're borrowing the whole amount, we've acquired this business already, and it's literally, we're borrowing for 6% and we're getting 40% back in cash flow. So our net result is 34% cash flow before tax. That's a good idea. And so now we're going to cookie cut that and we're going to just buy cash flow. And it's not in a particular business. And the reason I'm not telling you what the business is because I'm under tight lips from my business partner. I made a pact with him, just keep it quiet because we're on an acquisition spree. And if people know what we're doing,
stick to your word.
Well, if people know what we're doing, you lose a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
So it's always important. You don't have to tell everyone what you're up to. Go and execute. And once we've positioned ourselves we have enough, I'll do a whole new episode with you on this whole topic.
Yeah.
But so we're buying, and when you can cookie cut cash flow like that, it's not even a sexy business. We'll do it. And so it makes sense because of the cash flow. Not sometimes, all the times I look at the shares that I purchase, you've got to look at the cash generation of that business. And even the businesses that I'm in, not including the one we're purchasing, but our education business, we started that with $10,000. I was commenting on someone's, someone said, how do you turn $10,000 into $1 million? I'm like, we did it. We did it. We turned it into multiple millions of dollars in 3 years. We took 10,000 and we turned it into 2.6 million in 3 years. Okay. And I was already in businesses. I was already had a business. So this is a second business. And he said, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. I'm like, we did it. They said, send proof. I'm like, oh, bullshit. I call bullshit. I was like,
screenshot.
Right. Yeah. So I was like, screenshot that. So we took 10,000 and we turned it into a wonderful education business. And the reason we got into this space is because the ability to generate value was it's not simple for a lot of people, but I found with my skill set and my connections that it was fairly simple. So it's a very high cash flowing type of business because it's online. We started our network marketing business 10 years ago that's now been profitable at a 6-level rate profit plus, and there's some years where we've made, triple that in profit for 10 years, which is a remarkable thing in that industry. And when we started that business, the reason, and I already had a business when I started that one too, is because it was a high cash flowing business. So I look at the high cash flow, consistent cash flow, it pays weekly. Our other education business pays daily, okay, which is amazing. So high cash flow. And our events business is a good cash flowing business, although it's a bit lumpier because it's events, but it's also low overhead, high cash flow, right? And our new business is more overhead, but it's very leveraged. And so it's very high cash flow. So I think about that and think all the businesses we have are very cash flow based businesses. There's not a lot of, they're not capital intensive. We don't have to buy inventory and buy licenses, we're not carrying a lot of operating leverage. We can also we don't carry a lot of staffing and we don't carry a lot of fixed marketing costs. We can wind down that business in a month and it's very low again. So I think those things are very important to me. And I look for those traits quite often in some of the businesses we own in our stock portfolio. So one of them in particular is an online business in the travel sector. And it's a very good cash flowing business because it's online. Another one's a big online Chinese business. And that's a very high, you look at the cash flow of those businesses and they're obscenely high, And so I think you've got to look at cash flow. Cash flow is king because it gives freedom. Cash flow is the most important thing. There's so many businesses out there that don't have cash flow. They're dead. Family households that don't have cash flow, they're dead. Cash flow is absolutely king, but you can only get cash flow if you've created some cash and either bought some cash flow or you're in a business that develops cash flow by providing value, someone's paying you on a consistent basis.
I couldn't agree more, and especially when you have a business, that's literally the oxygen of the business in itself. Without
Totally.
cash, that business is going nowhere.
Totally. Yeah.
I'm gonna get you controversial. You know where we're heading.
Yeah, I know where we're
heading. Is crypto an asset?
They class it as an asset, don't they? You know, it's like same as gold. It's classed as an asset, although gold is more like a precious metal commodity. It's a thing. It doesn't do anything. Like gold it's not productive. Does that make sense? So like if you buy a farm, Warren Buffett's famous for telling this story. If you buy a farm, the farm will generate crop or host cattle, or you can lease elements of the land. It'll grow in tangible land value, right? But it's productive. It produces crop and livestock and so forth. You can develop on it. It's a very, very versatile asset, and you can generate income. I think an asset is something that produces income and grows in value. That's it. So I look at things like gold and Bitcoin, or the major version of a cryptocurrency, as not as an asset, because it just doesn't produce a predictable stream of income and grow in value at a predictable pace based on the income. So what I mean by that is it's very difficult to determine if you're getting a good deal with Bitcoin, okay, or crypto, because you can't value the asset because it doesn't produce predictable cash flows into the future. So there's a very simple discounted cash flow net present value model in finance, a formula you can do based on the predictable estimated cash flows of a business or an asset in future, and you can discount them back to a rough valuation of today. So you can actually determine quite within a range what a piece of real estate or what a piece of public business shares is actually worth based on the business or the real estate's ability to produce cash flow in future and the certainty of that. And if you can estimate it based on the last 30, 50 years of its cash flow production, you can get a pretty good value. So you know you're getting a good deal. So let me explain to you. Let's do an exercise, okay? I'll ask you this. I've got a piece of, we'll use real estate as an example. So I've got a piece of real estate. Now, Nelson, it's producing $100,000 a year in income, which is $2,000 a week, $100,000 a year in income, and it's priced at $400,000. It's available to buy. You want to buy it?
I don't like properties.
Okay.
It's kind of like I don't.
A business, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got this business.
Yep.
The business is producing $100,000 a year in income.
Yep.
And Nelson, I've really got to get out of it right now. Like I'm really struggling. I'm going to sell this business. Yeah. It happens to be a video production company. I know you're in that space.
Yeah.
Now I'll sell it to you for. It's producing $100,000 a year now. I'll sell it to you for $50,000. Is that a good deal?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, why?
Yeah. Because essentially, probably I'm getting, let's say, 50% of that income. So I'm paying $50,000 to make $50,000 pretty much.
Yeah.
And then the opportunity of me growing that business as well.
Yeah. So if the business was making $100,000 a year income, and I said to you it's $50,000, would you buy it?
Yes.
No brainer?
Yeah, no brainer.
Yeah, because you make your money back quite quickly from the cash flow. Now, if I said to you that same business is selling today, but, Nelson, I fancy myself. It's a good business. I've spent a lot of money. I'm a flipping best in the business. It's got all these wonderful things, and it's 10 million. Are you buying it?
You're crazy. Yeah.
Right. So you're not buying it. Yeah. Why?
Because the amount of return that I'm getting is not good enough from that business at that point in time for that price.
Okay, great. Awesome. So you understand that concept. We didn't even rehearse this, and you just know innately that you can determine. So the business is pretty good value at 50 to 100. What would you roughly pay for a business like that? The maximum?
Well, technically it's meant to be 3x of the profits.
Great. So you'd buy that for about $300,000. If it was producing $100,000 a year, you'd buy it for $300,000. So you roughly know.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you this. Cryptocurrency, Bitcoin today, selling for $60,000 US. You want to buy it?
It's pretty high. Yeah.
Is it? Based on what?
Because we compare it also to currency, right? To fiat. That's how we based its value at this point as well.
Well, it's measured off fiat.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
So number one, the problem is it's actually measured off the very currency it's supposed to replace. Yeah. So if fiat didn't exist, how would you value Bitcoin?
You have no idea because at this point, like the utility of it is not what is meant to be in the future. kind
Yes.
of
So
thing.
it's confused
Yeah.
between, is it a currency
Yeah.
or is it an asset?
Yeah.
And it's confused. So what it's turned into was the ideology of a currency is propagated to the marketplace and preached as an ideology to get people to buy into the story, but it's treated like an appreciating fad asset. It's speculative. The reason people are telling the story of the currency and how wonderfully amazing it is, right, is to get people to buy into the story, because the only way they make money is if more people buy it, because it bids the price up. So that's why people get so pissed off with me when I say Bitcoin's a flipping piece of shit, basically, is because when I say that, I detract more people buying it, which is, no, more people have to buy it for it to go up. It's called the greater fool theory. And it's the reason why gold and Bitcoin and Beanie Babies and tulip bulbs, it's just it's a Ponzi. It just goes up based on other people. Greater fool theory says that the asset is worth more the next day because you've sold it onto a greater fool than you. Because they're even stupider than you because they've bought it for a higher price. Yeah. It's the hot potato, right? And it's what caused the 1929 stock market crash, because people were treating stocks like crypto. There was just a greater fool. And the same thing happened on the .com. They were selling URLs, .coms. Remember that?
Yep.
2009?
Yeah.
Same thing. This is the same thing. It's just a different class. And so the reason why it completely is it doesn't know what it is. If it's a currency, it can't appreciate, can't do that. Okay? If it's an asset, then how do you know you're getting a good deal like you did with the business, because it doesn't produce any income? So how do you know it's worth 60,000? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So when you've got those two things happening at once, where it's a greater fool asset, doesn't produce income, you don't know what it's worth, you don't know if it's a currency or you don't know, that's a very good red flag to say, I should not be in this space because it is too confusing, it's too uncertain, and I don't know whether I'm getting a deal or not, and I don't know, you can't generate any freedom from it because it doesn't produce income, okay? And people will say, oh, you can stake it. And I was like, okay, whatever. It just doesn't. And so what you've got to understand is, if that's the game, a complex game, you've got an easy game over here that you understand, stocks and real estate, and will produce a ton of wealth for you. And you've got a really complex game over here that you don't understand, right? That may produce or may not produce, because there's nothing to tell it will. You can play both games. Which one are you going to play? A lot of people are playing this one, right? But this is the game to play. You just need certainty when it comes to wealth. And Bitcoin and crypto, it ain't certain. You can't put your money into it. And so whenever I have a conversation or a battle or a fight with someone on social media, I'll say a debate is a better word, because I like to debate it. I'm not, I don't dislike, I'm just looking at it from a logical, rational standpoint of what it is. When I debate with them online, they say to me, Lloyd, it's the crypto, it's the future, and Bitcoin's this and that. I say, great, how much have you got in it? Oh, $1,000. Okay, so fine.
Yeah.
Now, if I'd listen to someone like Michael Saylor because he's got billion, so it depends how much skin you got in the game.
Yeah.
But most people, I say to them, like if they say, oh, crypto, I say, well, look, would you put $1 million into it today?
$1 million?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so that's a problem. Because you can't grow your wealth if you can't deploy $1 million into something confidently. You can't grow it. You just can't. So it's okay at 1,000. This is where a lot of people are like, I got 1,000 in crypto. I got 1,000. I'm like, who gives a shit if you lose 1,000?
Yeah.
No one cares. Yeah. I've spent more on flipping a night out on 1,000, right? But when you grow your businesses and when you're trying to grow your wealth to multi-millions, and a lot of people can, you have to be able to deploy $1 million confidently into something. So let me ask you this. Could you deploy $1 million confidently into, if you had to, a piece of real, like a home?
Yeah, it's been proven to grow. That
Sure.
it's going to
so
grow.
you could confidently do it, and you're not going to lose sleep, and it makes sense. Still going to be there, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have that type of conviction when you invest, and you can't. Because I asked you before, would you do it in crypto? You said no. So if that's the case, you just can't. Yeah. So why do you want to play games that you can't even get good at? See, people are playing games that are going to lead to long-term problems. So it's like playing the gambling game in Vegas. That's a bad game to play. The racehorses, bad game to play. Yeah. But people are trying to get good at the wrong games.
Yeah.
So you might even get good at the trading of crypto, but one day along the line, you're going to lose it all. You're going to turn pear-shaped. And then all of a sudden you go, fire, I just spent 10 years getting good at a game that doesn't exist anymore. Whereas you know that real estate, you know that businesses and share, you know that's going to last. So you can get good at a great game. Why would you compromise that? That's the trick.
We're getting to the end of the episode, but I have a couple more questions for you. You recently hang out with Ty Lopez, which, as we know, is an incredible, successful entrepreneur and online media presence as well, influencer, all these things. What's your biggest takeaway from him?
Yeah, so we did this. I co-hosted an event in Sydney, Master Your Mind and Brand with Morgan, who's a mutual friend of ours, Morgan Nelson. And we did this event in Sydney, in the Intercontinental. Awesome event, super valuable for everyone. It was just such a valuable day for everyone. And Ty Lopez did it with Ty Lopez, and he did the keynote there and everything. And it was so interesting listening to him. He's such a good guy. Like, he's a good dude, Ty Lopez. He is very intelligent. He's thoughtful. He's a lot of humility. He's very wise. He's just a good guy. I like him. And anyway, we are participating in one of his masterminds. And in that particular mastermind, you get to ask questions. So yesterday, I asked Ty a question. I said to him, when is the time to buy the Lambo and the Ferrari? Right? And interesting question. It was like, I could have asked so many questions, but I feel like this is an interesting one for myself personally. Not that I was about to run off and buy one, but I was just curious to know, because he's very well known for those ads that he did back in his garage, you know? Groundbreaking, right? And so it was like an interesting question to ask. I asked it, and just before I pulled up here this morning, he replied to it. And so it's an interesting answer that he had. Tune into the next episode to find the answer.
We'll see you next time.
We'll see you on the next episode. So he said to me, look, because I gave him context too, because it depends on your financial position. So he said, well, look, if you've got throwaway cash that you've got sitting there idle, and you don't need it for your working capital, for your business and expansion, you don't need it to invest in assets, and you got it there. He said, live life, man. Like, live life, but don't go overboard. And he's very good at this. This is where his wisdom comes from. So, he says things like lifestyle creep is a slippery slope. So his debt accumulation, it's like, don't avoid it, but it's a slippery slope. Just understand that. And so he said, live your life, but just don't go overboard. And then he said, the wealthy, back when he was doing a lot of the that marketing, he said the haters are like, Ty leases cars, and he said, the haters can hate. Haters are dumb, he's cool. And he said, realistically, if you want to go into that type of car, it's important to think about leasing it, because a lease, you want to lease depreciating assets. So he said, and buy appreciating assets. So, Ty is very well known for buying appreciating assets like farm and so forth, and property and businesses. And I do that too. So I'm buying appreciating assets, but you lease depreciating assets. So that was a really interesting thing. So I thought it was cool. And then he went on to say, he's tested a lot of cars, obviously. He said Lambos and Rolls Royces are the ones. And I thought that was really cool too. So really good indication of, what type of cars are the best. But the way you buy them, is interesting. And a lot of other people in the States have said, lease the toys and buy appreciating assets. And I think that's a wonderful piece of advice about when. Because obviously when you buy those things in Australia, people hate on that a bit.
Yeah.
But in other parts like the States, they're kind of like, yeah, you bought the thing. So you don't want to create envy. And I don't really want to create envy when it comes to having those cars. So I was just curious. I would like to buy one in due course, but I want to make sure it's the right time and right way. And I don't want to create envy, and I want to create a lesson out of it. So I'm just conscious of that. But I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, lease depreciating assets, buy appreciating assets, and live your life, but don't go overboard. It's really good takeaways there.
I'm not so much for the Lambo, but I'll go for the G-Wagon.
Oh, the G-Wagon. Oh, yeah.
we can hang out.
Replace Lambo. I mean, whatever. Rambo, Ferrari. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're a car person too, like people aren't car persons, but even jets. Like Ty said, if you want a jet, lease a jet.
I use that as inspiration. You were talking about not creating envy, which I think is something too difficult to predict, right? Because people can take it any way they want.
They will
And we
take it
can't
anywhere they
control. Yeah, exactly. And we can't control how they see it. But I think it's more about the people that you can inspire by getting the Lambo and getting the Rolex and getting, these things that seemed impossible, right? And just show like, hey man, anyone can do it. Because when I see someone driving on a G-Wagon, all I see is like, man, how did he get to have a G-Wagon? How did he crack that code?
Yeah.
Right? He's driving a car that is the salary of many doctors, lawyers, all together, right? A car that 0.01% of people can have. And I don't even give a fuck about cars, but I just want to show people that you can get it. If you really want to, you can get it. Because I could not care less about a car or a watch, but I will get them just to show people that you can get them, right?
Yeah.
Which leads nicely to my next question for you. You got a Rolex there.
Oh, yeah.
How much is that specific one?
I think if you can get them, this particular one is a super presidential. I think it's like 60,000 US now, something to buy this. Yeah.
I recently went to the Rolex store and I came across the famous list. Like, I want this one. And she's like, oh, yeah, I can get you that one. When is your birthday? March? Awesome. And that was in January.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, great. You mean this March? She's like, no, like two March, so 2 years maybe. So,
yeah, it's a long wait now because COVID just drove it all out. But yeah, it's and Rolex is a good company. Like they really I was watching a documentary on Rolex recently, and they actually are good quality. Like they're high quality watches. They really are. They're not just about the reason they're valuable is because he built a good quality product and they built a brand around that. So now they're synonymous with wealth. In fact, Warren Buffett wears almost this exact one.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
When did you buy yours and why did you buy it?
I didn't buy it. It was a gift.
From who?
My dad.
Dude, that's the best dad.
Yeah, so the story goes, right? So he actually had one years and years ago. He had one like probably, or maybe 1990s. Anyway, he went through some wild adventures in business and it's a whole another episode. But I think he had to sell that at the time to do some things. And so for a long while, he didn't have a watch. So in 2008, I think it was, he was in Hong Kong. Now, if you ever want to buy jewelry, I can tell you, you want to buy it from either Hong Kong or Dubai. You do not want to buy it in Australia. Fact. You will go, it's better off to go to Hong Kong, go to Dubai, buy it, you come back, okay? And so I think in 2008, he bought it in Hong Kong. And he actually had it in his safe. He wore it for a long while, this exact watch. And he then, this is the coolest story, actually. So he wore this one for a long time.
Yeah.
I love this watch so much because it has sentimental value. I'm not someone that would go and buy watches, but I wear it's my dad's, right? It's awesome. And so he had this one. And during the GFC comes along and there's a lot of people getting hammered by the GFC, global financial crisis, a lot of people in trouble. Anyway, there's a friend of his, local guy here, owns restaurants and he was going through, challenging time in the restaurants. Anyway, he fell in love and he wanted to buy an engagement ring to get engaged. And so he had this beautiful watch. It was, this is a presidential and he had a super presidential, which means it has diamonds on the bands. It's a gnarly watch. It's like the best, one of the best Rolexes you can get. And he said to my dad, he said, Lloyd, because my dad's got rings and he had this watch at the time, so my dad's a business savage. He's like the oldest school's most savage, dude, the best business guy. Anyway,
and I have to
you got to bring him on the show.
Podcast,
He'd be interesting to have on the show. Like his life has been so interesting. Anyway, so he has this conversation with my dad and he says, Lloyd, I need to sell my watch because I want to buy this engagement ring. And my dad's like, hey, man, like, I don't have heaps of cash at the moment. Like I have cash, but like, I don't know if I want to spend it on this because I already have a watch. He's like, you know, it's not really what I want to spend my cash on right now. And the guy said to him, just make me an offer. I want this engagement ring, man. He's in love, right? You got to think about that. Just give me anything. Like, just make me an offer. And my dad said to him, look, you're not going to like it. You're not going to like the offer. He's like, just make the offer. My dad said to him, I'll give you $5,000 for it. He said, deal.
No way.
And he bought the super presidential Rolex watch in 2009, I think it was, for $5,000. And so what happened was he would wear that watch and he put this one in a safe in his house, which he had. And for years it sat in the safe. You know, I repatriated back from Dubai where I was doing real estate development and got into business with my dad. And we rebuilt together from the GFC, the family real estate business, which was just, it went through a very challenging time. And so we're hustling and we're just pivoting this business and changing them like the most incredibly challenging, but also the most fruitful learning experience, business adventure of my life. It was by far the hardest. There were so many things happening at once. And so we're in that trenches together. Yeah. And I remember, I think I turned 30 or something like that, or whatever it might be. And I actually forget. I forget the day I forget how he gave it to me actually. Yeah. But I don't remember the exact day or how he gave it to me. I just remember getting it from him. And because he had one already, you know, he had two. Yeah. He said, you know, I'm going to pass this on to you. So, and my brother will probably get his when my dad passes away, which will be cool for my brother. But I love it for that, and I wear it for that. You know, I think about my dad every time I pick this watch up. I think about him, and he's still alive, which is cool. So you bring him on the show and talk to him. But he's probably hopefully live for another 20 years. But that's got sentimental value to me. I would say that if I didn't, I still probably would have bought one, because it's a bit of a success token or momentum. And I could have bought one when I was probably 25, but for me at that time too, I didn't buy one straight away because it was more important that I buy assets. Yep. And now the amount of income we make from our assets, I could buy dozens of these, anytime. But it's not a high value of mine. The high value I recognize with this is that it's a high value brand that's actually a good quality product, but most importantly that it was a gift from my dad. And that holds, I would be gutted. I look after it differently because I can't replace it. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, it's unique.
It's very unique to me. So I think that's the story behind the Rolex. So if you see me, if anyone sees me on my Instagram and wearing the Rolex, now you know the story behind it.
It's a beautiful watch, and I love the story behind it, that it means something. It's like my hat. My hat means something to me, right? So
there you go.
I love that. And
it was Indiana Jones's before you.
Yeah. And the Rolex is gonna mean something.
Yeah.
Once I get it, which is pretty cool. Rapid fire questions.
Rapid fire.
The 3 most important skills any entrepreneur needs in order to make more money.
The 3 most important skills: sales, which is influence; marketing, which is generating leads; and leadership or vision casting to be able to recruit the right people. And I would say recruitment. So yeah, let's do that. Let's do sales, marketing, recruitment.
Dude, I 100% agree with those 3. Love that answer. I knew you were going to give something along those lines. We think the same. Yeah. We're in the same page here. What's the worst piece of advice you have ever received?
The worst piece of advice? Like advice that I followed?
Not that necessarily that you followed, but someone gave you that piece of advice.
Well, every day people tell me to buy crypto, so that's pretty bad. What else? I think I've been told like buy a nice car. That has been the advice. People go, buy a nice car, man. You got to buy your Ferrari, or just buy it. Like YOLO, just get it. That's the worst advice. Yeah. Oh, and I would say, not that anyone advised it. I was indoctrinated through school, but go to university. I think not all of it, but some elements of it. Not the best, but I don't regret any of it. Even the advice that I've taken, like I've lent money and lost it, and I've 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 bought things at, I've lost money. I've done business, like, I've started little businesses that lost. You got to lose. So the advice that someone's given me that I have taken and it's not worked out, what a great lesson. So is it bad advice or is it good advice? Because you learn. So
Best piece of advice you have ever received?
marry money first and fall in love later.
The most amount of money you have ever lost?
Okay. Two parts to this. The actual physical amount that I've actually sold and locked in losses in our portfolio creation was only $60,000. It's the only actual actual realized loss I have there. I've lost, and I may have lost some in lending, but not that much, so far. But I've lost. I would say my biggest loss is maybe $1 million, because if I had to just index from 23, we'd be $1 million richer on paper. Now, who's to say that's going to change in the future? But that's an active omission, not doing something. So like I made a mistake by not doing something, and that's probably cost me the most. But if we really got down to it, me not backing myself in business at an earlier age would be my biggest cost, because I don't know what I would have not created. Does that make sense?
The single best financial decision you have ever made?
Marrying my wife. Easy. Easy. Yeah.
If you have to bet everything in just one index fund, which one would it be?
I can't tell. I can't say. I know the listeners love it, but I can't say because I would,
Not financial advice.
No, I can't, because if I would influence them and they do it, that's financial advice. I can't, and I don't want to, because I don't want them to be advised. I want them to be educated and then make a decision. But I think it's just important to understand that, if they learn about these index funds, they'll be able to decide. And it's it's simple. And once they nail it, I think they'll be okay. But if I could choose one asset to invest in, personal brand.
You know this. You know that's the single. You know that's
Personal
the
brand.
single most powerful
Yeah.
asset you can build
Yes.
right now and for the next 10 years, especially with AI and all this stuff.
Yes.
If I could give you $1 million right now, or influence 1 million devoted followers, which one would you pick? I got them both here.
Yeah. Are they engaged followers?
Engaged followers.
Yeah, of course I'd take the 1 million followers.
Why?
Because I can make millions of dollars out of the 1 million followers. Millions. Not out of them, but for them, like that's a bit flipping rich, isn't it? Saying I can make $1 million. Like if I have attention of 1 million people, I can impart value to them that someone would part with some money. And I can sell assets on that and teach them and impact the world. So I'll take the followers, man. You can always get more money.
That's the thing. Like you can always acquire more money.
Yeah.
So it's easier.
I think it's actually, I'll tell you this, it's been easier to make $1 million than to get 1 million followers.
Absolutely.
Way easier.
100%.
Way easier.
Yeah. It's going to take a lot more work and strategy and systems and team to be able to get 1 million followers. The single most expensive item you have ever bought that wasn't an asset.
So not a business?
Not a business, not a cash producing thing, something that you bought for no other reason that you just wanted it.
Probably our Range Rover was pretty expensive. I spent a good amount of my net worth at the time on my wife's engagement ring, which was a very good idea. I was proud of that. She deserves that and more. But our Range Rover probably, and outside that, nothing major, just the car.
And this is a selfish one and last question. And it's the cheesy one. And I know you've been asked this before, but if you could go back to your 31-year-old, what would you tell him?
Yeah. I've often said that I would say to him, just keep doing what you're doing because you're going to have a kick-ass life and love your life. So just keep doing it. You're going to get there. You got this. I'd say that because that's like encouragement. But if you really want to know, like, it's hard to say because I don't want them to change, right? So if you ask...
You're dying.
Okay.
And you have the opportunity to go back.
Oh, shit.
It's a 31-year-old. It's not even you. It's someone else. A guy with a hat.
Okay,
He's
it's not even me.
31. It's not even you,
Okay.
but you have been able
Okay.
to acquire a lot of valuable information.
Okay,
right?
I would say learn marketing and selling and build a personal brand as soon as possible. So I'd say learn a skill set, become known for something, build a personal brand, and learn to monetize it and buy an index fund and scale it. That's what I'd say.
Got it, boss.
Yeah.
Dude, it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor to have you on the party. We're going to have to bring you back. I still have so many things I want to ask you and just engage with you and get your thoughts. So we're going to have to do a round two,
Sounds
probably
good.
a round three.
Yeah.
But Lloyd, where can people find you to engage with you, with your community, with your coaching, your programs, your book?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at Lloyd James Ross. Our book, my latest book, Money Buys Happiness, is moneybuyshappinessbook.com. And and tune into our podcast, Money Grows on Trees. It's just little snippets of money value from me each week.
And I can approve that potty is super valuable. I did listen to some of the episodes before this conversation. So as usual, all the links are down below. Make sure to check out this legend because he's here to stay and you're going to get a ton of valuable information in there. We're going to bring him back to the party. And make sure to follow us across all major social media platforms at The Creative Grid and at Creator Nelson. I will see you guys on the next episode. Good vibes to everyone. My goal for this podcast is to help 1 million creative entrepreneurs make more money, have more impact, and create their ultimate reality. The best way for you to support this mission is by sharing the podcast with anyone you think will find it valuable. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and follow us on all social media platforms at The Creative Grid and at Creator Nelson. I will see you at the top.